Hey everybody, this is Cody C. Engdahl, and I have come up with, I found like already probably on your computer, a great tool if you're editing your novel or any kind of written work. If you're like me, sometimes it's really hard to see your own mistakes, even if you read things out loud. And so I found something that it's free. It's on my computer already, on my at least on my word processor. I use Pages, but whatever kind of word processor you use, I'm sure there's something like this. So before we get started, my name is Cody C. Engdahl. I am the author of four novels, soon to be five. Well, I've written five. I've published four. The fifth one's coming out, and two nonfiction works. By the way, one of my nonfiction works is called "How to Write, Edit, and Market Your Novel." I think that's what it's called. It's been a while since I wrote it. It's a series of articles that I published on my blog, and then I said, you know what, this would actually make a pretty good book. So what I did is I took them all down, I re-edited them and formatted them into a book. The book is like $2 for the digital version. That's all you really need. It's not very long. I think it's like 50 pages, and or you can get a print copy for about $5. So if you're interested in that, and a lot of the techniques that I'm going to talk about are I explain in that book. And so if you get it and you end up, I know at least one guy who bought my book and followed my instructions and wrote a book and published as well. And he let me know that, and so I'm very proud. So um, if I produce hundreds of books because of all the people that have read my book and put out books. If I had something to do with that, I'm very proud of that. Hang on, let me get it adjusted. So anyway, just to get you caught up where I am right now. So I have I finished writing my the first draft of The Prussian Prince, which is the fifth book of my, now it's called the Long Century series. This is the book that comes after. Well, there's a Civil War trilogy, a prequel, and then book five takes place after the Civil War. Main character ends up going to Germany and gets involved with the Prussian Austrian War. And if you're, the commercial authors have the benefit of, if you're writing for a big publishing house, you probably, I mean, you give up a lot of that creative freedom that we independents have, but you get a lot of support. A lot of the commercial, excuse me, I'm choking all of a sudden. Commercial authors that I know, they finish their first draft and then they send it off to the editors. And that first round of editing, I think, is mostly like, hey, we don't like this character here, or you need to rewrite this. And I've heard from really well established authors that are like big deals, still get editors that send their work back and say, yeah, you need to rework chapter one, chapter two. I bet that's got to be tough, but I think that's part of being a commercial writer. But the payoff is you're going to have a professional staff who's not only going to do that, but you're going to have copy editors and proofreaders that are going to go through your things and get out all those stupid, embarrassing typos. And if you're anything like me, I'm a typo machine. I'm excuse me, I'm choking. I get auto corrected all the time, and or sometimes I type so fast that I think I'm typing fast, but what I do is sometimes I might omit words because my typing is keeping up with my thinking, and so I drop words all the time when I look and I read through my stuff. But a lot of times, what happens to me, and I can't be the only one, is that when I go back and reread my stuff, even if there's a typo in there or there's an omitted word or something like that, my brain subconsciously fixes it so I can't see my own mistakes. And I'll like read something 100 times over. Well, I mean, 100 times, multiple times over, and then I'll post it. And then Laura will send me a text, and she's like, "You need to fix your post. There's a typo in it." And I'm like, damn it. And I go and I look and sure enough, I'm like, God, I'm an idiot. I'm supposed to be a writer. And I can't even write 3 sentences on Facebook without making a fool out of myself. So I have a lot of trouble with that. And as an independent author without a big publishing company with a staff full of editors to watch over me, I have to do a lot of that work myself, or get. I mean, this. I guess if you're an independent, you either have to do that work yourself, or farm it out, or even pay a lot of money. And there are people that make quite a bit of money being editors. And I would say, especially if you don't have a strong sense of grammar, you might want to pay someone to do that. Now, I have a pretty good system here. And so real quick, I'm going to go through my kind of writing system of how I write and how I edit. So the way I write is I create a master document, and then I'm basically building the whole book. But when each chapter, I create a separate document, and then I type in that, because otherwise, if you got, like my current book is 76,000 words. If it gets that big, it's kind of hard to move around in there. And plus, I'm afraid that I'm going to make a mistake or do something and ruin the whole thing. So I have a master document, and then I have each chapter is its own document. Let's say I'm on chapter 14. So I write chapter 14. And then when I'm done with the first round of editing on it, I insert it into the master document until I have the whole book built. And then I start the true editing. So as I'm writing, I do a lot of editing while I'm writing. So as I'm writing, and this is how I do it. Everybody has a different way, but this is what works for me. When I sit down to write, the first thing I do is I go back and I read what I wrote the last time. And for multiple reasons. One of the reasons is just to get myself caught up. Where was I? What was I doing last time, so I can pick up, and also not just what I was writing, but also the tone. What was my tone with that? But also, this is the kind of the first round of editing, because I will read through it, and anything I see clunky, poorly written sentence, typos, mistakes, things like that, omissions, that'll be like the first round of editing as I'm writing. Then when I finish a chapter, I will go through kind of a mini editing system with that, a session. First thing I'll do is I'll take the chapter and I'll just run it through a spell checker and just see if there's any obvious things that I can find. Then I'll read the whole chapter out loud, and I'm telling you, it's a different world when you read out loud, because when you read, is as much as you think you're doing a good job, you really can't hear how it sounds until you have heard yourself. You've heard it written out loud. If you're using the same word over and over. And I got my first. Let's see. I got my first comment here. Inserting a chapter at a time is a good idea. Going to steal it. Yes, that's Lloyd Elmore Jr., by the way. And Lloyd, yeah, I highly recommend it. And Lloyd's an author too, and you can check out his books on Amazon. Lloyd Elmore Jr. I've read a collection of his short stories and his first novel, and I enjoyed it all. Yes. So then I read the whole thing out loud, and that's where I really will catch things like if I'm using the same word too often, or if maybe when I read it, it sounds okay in my head, but when I read it out loud, I'm like, oh, that sentence sounds really clunky and bad. I need to fix that. Now, we're going to get back to this whole reading out loud thing, because it's going to come into focus when we talk about this new tool that, I mean, it's not new, but it's new to me. And maybe you guys are like, duh, we knew this, but it was new to me. So I'm sharing that with you, because like I said, the reason I'm doing this, well, I mean, it's bookmark. I'm marketing my books, but what this channel is turned into is that I am a author. I sell books all over the world. I've sold thousands of copies of my books in maybe a dozen countries. So I have some success. I've made mistakes. I'm probably making mistakes right now. but I'm learning and I'm growing and I'm sharing that journey with you. If you are an author, or if you're just a reader and you're interested in keeping up with the whole process and what's coming out with me soon, like the Prussian Prince. So then once I've read it out loud, then I copy and paste everything and I put it in Grammarly. Now Grammarly is there's a free version of it. I haven't done the paid. I've heard the paid version is worth it, but on my starving artist budget, I just do the free. And Grammarly does a really good job. It's so much better than spell check. Spell check will find little things like you left out a period or a comma or you misspelled something. But Grammarly will understand the context of what you're writing, and it's really good for finding mistakes. Now, I'm on a Mac and I write on Pages, Pages is like Macintosh's version of the of Word, and I like it. I hate Word, and nothing against Word or Word users. It just confounds me. I feel like I have no control over it. It jumps around. I feel like it doesn't do what I want it to do. Where Pages does what I want it to do, and I feel like I control it. There's a lot of other ways out there, so whatever you're doing, I'm sure it's fine. I like Pages. That's just me. Now, the one thing is that Grammarly, that's a hard word for me to say. Grammarly, they have an online version of it that you can use, and you can also download it onto your computer. Like I said, it's free, and it will correct me when I write like Facebook posts and Twitter and things like that, and a lot of my emails. For some reason, it won't embed itself into my Pages. But I think this is a good thing, because if it were correcting me constantly while I'm writing, that is a little, because I've done that where I've written directly into Grammarly. And let's see if I can pull that up, actually. We'll see if we can pull that up here. I have to use a different browser to do my to do the live streaming, and so I have to use Chrome, because once again, I'm on a Mac, and most of the time I'm on Safari. But okay, so I got to log in. If it allows me to log in, then we can do this. Okay. I think it's installed. No, I've already done that. Not working. Sorry. Let's see here. Okay, here we go. There we go. All right. So I'm going to pull this up for you. Now I've already done a, okay, we're going to share the screen. Insert chapter type. Okay. Oh, no, it just brought up the same thing. Okay. So we'll share screen, and we'll do Grammarly. Okay. So this is the last chapter that I edited in from the book. And you can see, well, I'll tell you what, I've already gone through this, and look, it says I got a 94. If I get above a 90, but I'll do something. Let's do this. I'm gonna take the next chapter. There you go. No. All right, let's just forget. Let's go back to Grammarly. But Grammarly will show me, like, I've already been through this this chapter already, making the corrections, and so when there are mistakes, you click over here, and it'll find them, it'll underline them in red, and then it'll give you options to fix it. So what I'll have to do is I'll read I'll find all the mistakes that Grammarly found, and then I'll go back through the original document, or the document, and fix it in both places. And that kind of makes me pay more attention than if it were already in the software. And then you can see here the stuff that's underlined. I'm colorblind. I think maybe that's green or something. If I was paying paying for it, it would also give suggestions that you might not necessarily have to do. Like it's not necessarily wrong. It's just that it'll say, well, this document would be better if you did it this way. So I run it through Grammarly. Once that's done, I then add that chapter to the main document, and that way I can write chapters in separate documents where it's easier, where they're only like 3 or 4 pages long, and the main document I'm just adding things in there. Once everything gets done. Oh, and by the way, not only do I do that, but then when I get done with a chapter, I also copy and paste it into an email and send it to Laura, and then Laura just puts those emails into a folder that she has on her email server, and that's in case like something happens. If my computer dies, because I wrote half a novel or a good portion of a novel in the 90s, my hard disk drive died, and I lost all my work or most of it. And so to not have that happen again, I always email her a copy, because then if something happened, we can go find those chapters in her email, or I can even look in my sent and see it and recover them from there. So once I get done writing a novel and everything's built out, I've written the entire novel. All the chapters have been inserted in the main the main document. I've written the title pages there, the copyright, table of contents, the preface, the acknowledgement, all that kind of stuff. The works by Cody Engdahl at the end of the book, the historical, everything is completely built out the way the book's going to be. Just now has to be edited. That's when I start my editing process, and it's very similar to my writing process. What I do is I did it a little different. I added a step. I just read through the whole thing. I don't read it out loud. If I see mistakes, I'll fix them, but I'm not really looking to do a whole lot of that. I'm just looking to see if the book flows well, if it's missing something, if there's some continuity problems, like this character was called this in the beginning of the book, but somehow that name changed in the middle of it. Just little nitpicky things like that. And just, or not nitpicky, but more like just making sure, does it flow? Is everything that needs to be in it, all that. So I do that once. And then I get down to the nitty gritty. I go back to the top and I start every section, including like the table of contents and whatever. What I'll do is I will run each section, each chapter through, once again, through spell check. And then I'll read it out loud, and then I'll run it through Grammarly, and then I'll just do that whole thing all the way through the novel until I finally got it done. Well, the problem, and then when I'm done with my part of it, I then send it off to Laura. Laura is really good, attention to detail. She's written scientific publications, so she knows how to write. She's got better grammar than me. She goes through it with a fine-tooth comb. She finds things that I missed, and about 2 weeks later, she gives it back to me. She's printed the whole thing out. She's done just red pen, through the whole thing, and then I make those corrections, and then I send it to my mother, Nancy Thompson, who will also do the same thing. And that usually catches things. Usually Laura doesn't miss anything, but I don't always catch all her corrections or whatever. But it's just the last line of defense, and then we send it to the publisher, which is Amazon, KDP, and then once they approve it, then it's live. So I have been, I finished writing. I think, was it last week? I think I finished writing a week ago on Wednesday. Let me see here. I'm looking at my calendar here. And was that right? Yeah. I think I finished writing on the 29th of November. Just a couple days more than a year from when I published Mexico, My Love. I finished the book. And where am I going with this? Oh, yeah. And so now I'm just trying to get as much done as possible, because we're looking at launching the pre-order the day after Christmas, and then the book comes out February 4th, which is my birthday. So I'm really big on just like I got to get all this editing done. So um, I I work for a company called MGR. I do some research field work for them, and I have to do a bunch of work here in the Nashville market, and then I'm going to a week from tomorrow. I'm going to Huntsville for a week, and so I'm trying to get my part of the editing done so that Laura can get to it, so that she can get done. My mom's, to get I guess the pressure is on me to get my part of it done. So even though I'm working every single day now, like I worked today and yesterday, I still want to get up early and work on the book some before I go out and hit the road. But so Laura on the weekend, and Laura and I don't live together, but we spend weekend nights together, and we spend Wednesday night. Laura likes to sleep in. It's her right. She's got to get up and go to work every Monday through Friday. So on the weekend, she doesn't want to get up until after 9. I wake her up. So I get up. I naturally wake up around like sometimes even before 5 o'clock in the morning, and my that's usually when I do most of my writing, when I'm most active. And so I was like, okay, well, I got to go out and work today for MGR, but I want to get at least a chapter done. I did a chapter yesterday, a chapter today, and but the problem was I can't read the book out loud while Laura is sleeping. I'd just be a jerk. And I don't want to go in the other room. I'm there to be with her. I want to be in bed with her, with her warm body laying next to mine. So I started editing. I was like, okay, well, I'll just kind of read. Like there's a way of reading where you're not really conscious of reading. And there's a way of reading where you're enunciating the words in your head. As if you're reading it out loud, but I found myself not able to do that. So here's a little thing, and I've seen this before. Let me see if I can switch over to this. I'm going to share all my screen. Let's see, let's stop sharing, and we'll go to present, and I'm going to share screen, and we're going to share, let's see if we can share a window. Oh, perfect. Okay. So I'm going to share, and I'm also going to give you a little preview. There we go. Now let me just make sure I'm still on camera here. Okay, perfect. And here's a preview of, that's not what I want to show. I'm going to close this guy down. All right. So I wanted to be able to read out loud. And this is chapter 1. I was actually working on chapter 5 today, I think. But I can't do it while my girlfriend's sleeping. So I realized that, and you guys may be like, oh yeah, of course, everybody's got this, but I didn't. I have a thing called, let's see, if I go to file, it's called, you go to file, no, go to edit. And the thing is called speech. Okay. And you can see that there's start speaking and stop speaking. And basically what it is, it's Siri. It's Siri's voice. It's very robotic. And it's kind of funny because the intonation doesn't always fit the scene. So sometimes you get some funny funny inflections that don't really fit what's going on in the story. So it's not like, a professional narrator narrating your book, but you'll hear someone read the book. And so today and yesterday I did this. And I'm going to give you an example. Now you can do it through the menu. You need to put your cursor. So I put the cursor where it says chapter 1, and I can hit, I can come here to speech. It's under, now this is on pages. And I would like to know if whatever you're writing on, does it have something like this? So I'm going to give you a little sample and a little sample with the book. This is chapter 1 of the book. So we're going to do, not insert. Sorry, I'm lost already. Okay. Edit. And we'll go down to speech. And we're going to say start speaking. And a big fat nothing happens. Okay, hang on a second. It's being ornery because it knows I'm live and it wants to give me a hard time and embarrass me. Okay, let's see here. Well, that's something. Okay, there's another shortcut. If you do Option and Escape,
Chapter 1.
there you
The
go.
Little Prince.
Streamer, okay.
March 18th, 1848. Berlin, the Kingdom of Prussia. The Prussian soldier stood tall and rigid. His shako hat made him seem even taller. He held his bayonet at the ready. Across from him stood his fearsome enemy, a loathsome imperial guardsman in a bearskin hat, one of Napoleon's finest. Die, you French bastard, Klaus shouted as he smashed the two figurines together. Klaus. Such language. Fern gasped, dropping her hairbrush to her lap. She eyed the little boy from the mirror of her vanity and shook her head in humorous disbelief. Where did you learn that word?
Okay, so you can see it's very robotic. Now, I think my computer's being slow, and that's why it wasn't working right away. But you have these controls here, and I can,
Word? You don't even know what it means.
you can start and stop. You can also
Means.
you
Sure
can
I
speed
do.
it up.
Do. Klaus stood up to address his cousin. His toy soldiers were still clasped tightly in his fists. Papa says the French are a bunch of fathers they about trying to spread heresy and socialism.
So that's fast. I can slow it down.
Little boy. And what do you think it means? She asked, turning to him and laughing.
And
Her.
I don't know what this is.
Big blue eyes. He looked down.
Oh,
at his
okay.
toy
So we can
soldier.
fast forward and we
Go
can
ahead.
rewind.
What do you think socialism? He looked down at his toy soldiers.
But the reason why I think this is so good and useful is that, in fact, I'm going to go back and redo some of these chapters that I've already finished with my part of the editing. Is that, like I said earlier, when I'm reading it and I can't see my own mistakes, and reading out loud sometimes does help that, but my mind is subconsciously fixing things. So I may be looking at the mistake right in front of me, but I'm still adjusting it and fixing it as I'm reading. So having that voice read it out for you really allows you to hear it as it is. Like, for example, I think I was editing chapter 5, and at one point I said Berlin. I wrote Berlin, but I dropped the R. And I had already read through this multiple times, but every single time I read through it, I couldn't see that it was missing that R until I heard that voice call it Balin. And I'm like, whoa. And then I stopped and I'm like, oh, because I didn't put the R. And if you notice this, here's the other thing that's kind of cool.
Blushing madly.
Let's
Go
see
on then.
here.
What do you think socialism means? She prodded.
Let's
He finally recovered and looked back up with newfound conviction.
all right, let's. It is a little clunky, and it gets weird when it gets past. It gets past what's shown on the screen. But here's another cool thing. So I'm going to try to see if this works. Back to edit, speech, start speaking. Okay. It just really doesn't like it that way. Okay, so you can also do Option and Escape, and
He
then
finally recovered and looked back up with newfound conviction.
No.
It means no one works and the world comes undone.
Okay, there's the
Fern
controls.
blinked at him for a moment. She smiled with
Here we
open
go.
mouth incredulity.
Takes it a minute for everything to start working, but what it'll do is it'll underline whatever sentence you're on, and then it'll highlight the word that it's on. So I think that's really.
Hanan laughed. Come here, my little prince. Let me squeeze this nonsense from your tiny little body. Klaus dropped his toys and stumbled into her arms.
Okay, so it doesn't work perfectly, but I think you can see what I'm saying here, that this is a turn that off here. We'll go back to the studio. That having someone read it out loud to you allows you, and reading along as well, it allows you to really see the mistakes and hear them as they come. And not only that, but just like sometimes my sentences can be too wordy, and kind of clunky, and there's kind of like unnecessary words or phrases that are in there, redundancies, all that kind of stuff. Or if sorry, that's my alarm saying I gotta take the trash out. So anyway, this tool here, which I think most people already have on their computers, is a big help to me. I think if you're editing stuff, it'd be a big help to you as well. So you can hear it go by and you can catch mistakes. So I was very excited about that. So anyway, enough of that. Let's talk about. Let's see here. First of all, if you are interested, we're running a special. Mexico, My Love, all the way through next Friday in the United States is only 99 cents for the digital copy. Here it is, Mexico, My Love. There you go. Yeah, you can see right down here. 99 cents. That's in the U.S. That'll run all the way until Friday, and then we're going to be 99 pence in the UK the following week. So there's a update on that. As far as my the current book that I am writing, the Prussian Prince, like I said, I am working on my part of doing the editing process. I hope to have that done certainly by Christmas. I'm hoping actually by the end of this week, by the end of before I go to Huntsville a week from Monday. So that will give Laura. Laura says she needs 2 to 3 weeks. Great. And then my mom. I am going to do a pre-order starting the day after Christmas. And the reason why I'm waiting to do that, first of all, there's a couple things going on pre-orders. One is I've heard Dave Chisholm, and I think Dave Chisholm is a lot smarter than me and knows a lot more about publishing than I do. But Dave Chisholm will tell you, don't do pre-orders unless you're super famous, and this may have changed, but according to him, and I should see if he's changed his because he has a video on this, but according to Dave Chisholm, if you do pre-orders, you can actually hurt your book ranking, and ranking's important on Amazon because the lower the ranking, the better, because number one is number one, and number a million is a million miles away from number one. So you want the lowest book ranking possible, and book ranking goes by, I think it goes by sales. I don't know if KEMP reads count, but what happens is that when you do a pre-order on your book, the clock is now ticking, and so your pre-orders count as sales. And so if you're not getting a lot of pre-orders, you're rising in the ranking, or it's so hard to do this. Your ranking is getting worse and worse and worse because no one's buying your book. I mean, they could be buying your book, but unless you're someone really famous, or you got an excellent marketing plan, or you have a loyal readership, it's probably not a good idea to do pre-orders, because if you're not getting any, then when your book finally comes out, it's already going to be just buried in the rankings because you did a pre-order for a month or longer with no sales, and so now it's buried, and you got a long way to go to get out from behind the 8 ball. But what Dave says is, it's bad if you're not. It doesn't work it only works if you're famous, you have a great marketing plan, and you have a loyal readership. And I'm delusional enough to think that maybe I have a little bit of all three. Maybe at least a loyal readership. I do have people that read every book that I put out. I will say that the first one I did a pre-order on was Blood for Blood at Nashville, and it wasn't great. I had just a few, and then but I did markedly better with the next book, Mexico, My Love. And so I've decided, you know what? I'm just going to, I always say, bet on success. Bet on success. Don't bet on failure. Bet on success. So I'm going to do pre-order again, and I'm just going to keep doing it until it starts working for me. I think it is working for me. Like I said, Mexico My Love did a lot better on that, and I do have loyal readers that read everything I put out. So I'm going to do that. The reason why I'm waiting till after Christmas is that I have found, and a lot of the marketing experts on Amazon have said this, is that it's actually, you think that Christmas is the best time to put out a book because it's Christmas shopping season, but the research shows that people typically don't buy books for other people for Christmas, and if they do, it's usually something pretty famous and not like a little known author. I mean, yes, there are some, and yes, I've had people literally buy my books as Christmas presents for other people. I've had that happen when I've done shows, like I do. There's a lot of shows I do right around Christmas, like I did. What was the one I just did? The Middle Tennessee Civil War show, and I've had people literally like, "Oh, I'm buying this whole set for my dad or whatever." So you do get that, but really not a whole lot. And so for most people, book sale across the board, book sales actually go down during the Christmas shopping season. And boy, did I learn that, because last year we started how did we do this? That's right. I think I started Mexico My Love came out the day after Thanksgiving, because I thought, okay, we're going to do Black Friday. It's going to come out Black Friday. And I was thinking I was going to that was before I learned this, that I was going to get all these sales and everything was going to be great because it's Christmas, right? No. What happened is I did the pre-order, I think about a month beforehand. And I did okay. It wasn't bad. You know, it was much better than the previous book. So when the book came out, the first week the book came out, it was like the best launch week I had to date. It was like the day of all those. And that's the other thing with pre-order. You don't get the money. They don't take the money from the person until they deliver. So if you pre-order a book, you don't pay any money until the book comes out, and then it automatically takes the money from you and sends you the book. I think that's just to save you, because there's a lot of hacks out there that aren't doing a good job and give us independents a bad name. So to protect the consumer, and Amazon's always going to be protecting they're always going to be on the side of the consumer, which they should be, because they want the readers to have a good experience. So they're not going to let hacks sell their books on KDP if they're not any good and people are not liking them, or they're not delivering when they do pre-order. So you have to make sure, if you're going to do a pre-order, you better make sure that book is written and very close to publishing. I would never do a pre-order unless I don't want the stress. I don't want to be like, oh my God, I'm half written. It's supposed to come out next month. I mean, I would never want to go through that. Never in a million years. So anyway, what happened was when the book came out, all the pre-orders, ka-ching, all of a sudden, all those orders went through and I got paid. And just the initial, like all the people, like if you follow me, my author page on Amazon, all those people that follow me on Amazon get an email. Hey, you're an author you follow. Cody C. Engdahl has a new book out, blah, blah, blah. And so all the people that follow me very closely and buy my books as they come out, all those people, showed up, and bam, best release I ever had in my life. That was week 1. Week 2, boom, the bottom just fell out. Now it's the Christmas shopping season, and I've already gotten, like, my dedicated loyal readers have already bought their books. Now I'm depending on new readers. Not nothing, but like a trickle. Like all of a sudden it went from like the best first week of release turned into the worst second week. And I mean, worse than even my first book, worse third week, worse fourth week. I was like, oh my God, this is terrible. This is terrible. But then a Christmas miracle happened. First of all, I started advertising on Facebook. That helped out a lot. But what happened is that during that season, people don't buy stuff for themselves and they don't buy books for other people, and they don't read a whole lot because everybody's super crazy busy with the holiday. It's just it's a I mean, I don't have kids or anything like that, so I got nothing to worry about, but I'm still stressed out, you know. But you got it's the end of the year, so you got work is crazy. You got all these events you got to go to, and you got family things, you got shopping. It's nuts. So no one's reading, no one's buying stuff for themselves, no one's buying books for others. But then everybody gets their Amazon gift cards on Christmas, and guess what? They come on to Amazon, and now they're looking for stuff. And now, not only that, but like, oh, you know, new year, I'm going to read more this year, and I'm going to have more time to myself. It's time for me to, boom, all of a sudden, it went from like, okay, first week, best first week ever. Next few weeks, the worst ever. And then after, right after Christmas, bam, my sales exploded. I was making 4 to 5 times my monthly average in royalties, and that sustained all the way through June. It wasn't until like July that started tapering off, and then finally just kind of fell into the doldrums of late summer and early fall. And I think I have this written down. The best days. I don't think you can see this, but let's see here, writing, and then let's see, links. The best days for, okay, the best months for sales, they say December, which I think, but pre-Christmas, no. But January is one of the best months for book sales. So it's good to have your book out around that time. The next best time of the year is the October, November. So from October to like Thanksgiving is a good time because you know, the weather's getting cooler. People want a nice fall book to cut up next to the fireplace and read. And then there's also a peak in May and June, like the early summer reading season. But once you get past June, the bottom falls out and people are not buying books. Let's see. Yeah, in July through September are dead months. So July, August, September, don't count on a whole lot of books. So I've heard from the experts that if you're not super famous and you're writing books, don't try to time your release. When the book is ready, get it out there. Now, my book will be comfortably ready by the time I'm going to have it out. So I decided I like to give myself at least 2 months for editing once I finish the rough draft. So I finished it just a couple days after Thanksgiving. And so I said, okay, well, 2 months from Thanksgiving. Well, that's that's February. And I said, well, I would normally just put it out when it's done, but I decided that I want to do a pre-order, and I figured, well, February 4th is my birthday, and I get a lot of traffic on my Facebook page because it's my birthday, and I get a lot of people wishing me happy birthday. So I thought, well, maybe because I'll have all that attention on me, it'd be a good day to actually launch the book. So that's what we're going to do. The book launches on February, but I want to get some of the early gift card business. So we're going to do pre-orders. Unfortunately, pre-orders are only on the digital. So you can't pre-order. But here's the thing. I still think like not a lot of people are hip to pre-ordering, you know? I mean, it's like, well, I just, you know, I'll buy it maybe when it comes out, but I want something now. Now, there are some people there are some authors that I would like to pre-order because I love their work and I read everything, you know, like Bernard Cornwell. Like I would, you know, I'd love to his books are pretty expensive, so I usually get them from the library. Sorry, Bernard. But I want to entice people to you know, basically commit to buying the book before it comes out. So what I'm going to do is I believe the book is going to be $4.99, and so everything's moving. So like the first 2 books in the series are $2.99, and then Blood for Blood is $3.99, and Mexico My Love is $4.99. Uh, Blood for Blood is going to stay $3.99 because it's a much bigger book than the other ones. It's epic, and so is Mexico. So Mexico is going to move down to $2.99 for the. I'm sorry, to $3.99, but it's 99 cents right now until till um the end of Friday. Mexico is going to Mexico My Love is going to go from $4.99 to $3.99, where it's going to stay for the um, viewable future. How do you say that for him? The seeable future. And then the Prussian Prince is going to be $4.99. And then when the next book comes out after that, then the Prussian Prince will move to $3.99, and then ultimately after like 2 or 3 years, it'll be $2.99. I think that's the plan right now. We'll see. That can change. But anyway, I want to entice people to buy it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to offer it as a pre-order at 99 cents. So you can so if you're willing to order it a month before it comes out, you can get it 75% off. And then the day it comes out, it'll go back up to $4.99. Because Amazon's got some funky rules about changing things. I might have to wait like 72 hours to once it goes live so you might even get it for 99 cents the first day or two it comes out. But if you want to make sure that you get that 99-cent price, I recommend, pre-ordering it because it'll make me feel good. Right? Oh, we're all friends here, right? 99 cents. It's a great book. I'm very excited about it. I got to tell you, I've heard other authors say this, that, you're writing a book and you're like, you get excited, you get frustrated, you struggle with it. And then you get done, you're like, is this book any good? Is it any good? Is it just, did I write just garbage? And you go back and you start editing it and you start reading through it. And you're like, wow, I actually really like this book. I'm very excited about it. So The Prussian Prince is, I think, in my humble opinion, very good book. I'm very excited about it. There's going to be some twists and some surprises. It's a continuation of Carl's story. If you've been reading all my books, Blood for Blood, well, basically it's going to pick up Carl at where we left him at the end of Blood for Blood, and it's going to take him on a European adventure, which will end up being the Austro-Prussian War. There's a lot of returns of some other characters that Klaus is coming back. So is Claudette, and you're going to meet some new characters. And there'll be some surprises. And I really like it. It's not as long as the last two, but I think it's a good length. I will tell you, I've had a few people tell me that they read my first two books. They started Blood for Blood, didn't finish it, or they're going to get back to it. Or I've heard that about Mexico because they're really long books. They're like, Blood for Blood is 119,000 words. Mexico My Love is 124. 124,000 words. I think I think the industry standard, like a good like Goldilocks place to be, is 80,000 words. 80,000 words is, like, I think, a good length for a novel. I think readers like it because it's very consumable. I think once you get over 90,000 words, the book starts feeling long to people. And I think also there is a business and marketing thing to this as well. Why write 520,000 word books when you can write, 7 or 8, 80,000 word books? And when I first started writing The Prussian Prince, what I had planned to put in it was going to end up being probably even longer than Mexico My Love. And not only that, it jacks up the price of certainly the print, because the production cost for printing the book becomes more and more expensive. And in fact, I had to change the format of Mexico My Love because it was going to be way too expensive for the print version. So I switched it to the 6x9 format so that it would be less pages, same amount of words, but less pages. And that knocked it down. It was going to be like $19.99 for a paperback, but by just switching the format, it took out like 60 pages, and it dropped down to like I think it's $13.99. It's $14 for it. It was going to be $20. We knocked $6 off the production cost, or the cost of the book. And I don't want my books to be that expensive. I want them to be very reasonably priced. I mean, I want to make my money, but I also, I as an independent, one of the weapons I have to compete against the commercial guys is that they, and by the way, commercial authors, they make less per book than the independents do. Our royalties per book is much higher than a commercial author, but commercial authors do volume because their publishers are getting their books into brick and mortars. So they're selling a lot more, but you can make the same amount of money selling to being more of a niche author. And that's the thing. Like, if I wanted to go to get a publisher and become a commercial author, I don't think any of them would accept an Austro-Prussian War book. They're like, what the hell is that? If you look into like historical fiction, most of the people are writing. They're doing Romans, they're doing Vikings and Anglo-Saxons and early medieval British. They're doing Napoleonic Wars, and they're doing World War II, and some are doing. I don't think there's a lot of commercially published Civil War books. I don't know if they do that well. The Civil War crowd is, as I've learned, is a very niche audience, and it's weird because their tastes are. It's complicated, and I think a lot of people of the historical fiction world don't like American Civil War stuff because they feel it's tainted. It's tainted with, unfortunately, there's a lot of modern day politics that gets wrapped up in it that people are still arguing about, and they just can't enjoy it like they can enjoy like a good Napoleonic book or a Roman. Like, no one gets mad about what the Roman wars were actually about, or for who were the good guys or bad guys. They just want to see guys with spears and swords fighting each other. Civil War, it's a minefield of hurt feelings and people still to this day having grudges and things like that. So it's a little tough to write it. But yeah, I think I looked it up, and the most popular of historical novels, I think World War II is big. And historical fiction is a big genre as well because it includes like military historical fiction, action adventure historical fiction, and historical romance as well, which is my friend Jeannie Hart writes in, and that's a whole other genre into itself. But all of them like to do World War II stuff. So World War II, immensely popular. And then, like I said, I think after that, Romans, Vikings, and Nazis. That's what they want. And so if you want to get a book deal, they're like, okay, what do you got for us? It better be Romans, Nazis, or Vikings. What was I saying with all this? Oh yeah. So one of the weapons I have, I mean, not weapons, because I'm rooting for everybody. I got friends that are commercially published authors, but one of my weapons or tools to compete with them, it's not a knife, is that I don't have the overhead. So if you notice, if you see Kindle books that are like $15, or anything that's over like $6, $7.99, $8.99, $12.99, $14.99, $17.99 for a Kindle book, that's a commercially published author. So that is someone who's published through a big publishing house, and so there's a lot of overhead. So that money you're paying is paying the royalty to the author, but it's also paying the agent, it's paying the big building in New York that they have, and the staff, and the editors, and the book artists, and all that stuff. There's all the marketing. So they have to charge that much. A little guy like me, who's doing most of that work myself, or having thankfully a girlfriend and mother that helps, can slip underneath that and sell a book for a lot cheaper, and yet make more money per book. The difference is I'm just not going to get the same kind of exposure as someone who's commercially published. So that's what we're doing here. It's part of the journey, is that you can do really well. And I've heard people who are commercially published say, you still got to go out there and do the marketing. You can't, the days of just you hand off a manuscript and like, okay, I'm going to write the next one, good luck. You still have to do a lot of that work. So if you're going to do a lot of that work, you might as well work for yourself. Yeah, you might get a little head start if a big publisher picks you up, and if that's what you want to do, go for it, man. And I'd like to hear what your experience is. And if a big publisher came to me and said, "Hey, we would like you to write some books for us," I would be like, "Yeah, sure, let's do it." Because I'd like to see what that's like, and if that worked out for me, if it was a fair deal, and I mean a fair deal, like fair to them and me, because my feeling is it's got to be that way. So if the people I'm making the deal with, if it doesn't benefit them, then it's not going to benefit me in the end, right? So it's got to be a mutual benefit deal. But I decided very early on, when I was writing my first book, and I was thinking, okay, do I want to go the commercial route, get an agent, and or do I want to do the independent? And I think 20 years ago, that probably the commercial route was the way to go, and you'd be fooling yourself. But I really do think I'm seeing commercially published authors now dipping their toes back in independence, and I see people who are doing both, where they're writing books for publishers, but then they also have they're also doing independent publishing on some of their projects, and doing pretty well. I'll give you an example. Here's someone that I really like. Let's see if we can pull this up without showing all the embarrassing things that I shot for. Let's see here. Yeah, here we go. All right, let's see. Can you see this? Oh, good. So you even see me do all that. Okay, good. So I am very excited about this, and I'm already backlogged, because I bought a lot of 99-cent books from people, because like I said, it's important to me to always be reading other people's stuff, especially in the genre. But I don't have a lot of money to throw around buying, especially commercially published books that can be like $7.99, $8.99 for the for the Kindle version, right? So but when someone I like throws a book out there for 99 cents or very reasonable, I might snatch it up. So now I have like a whole list of books that I need to read, and I'm still reading Alexander Dumas' The Prussian Terror, which is really great, because Dumas wrote that like a year after the war was over. So it's interesting having written my own book about the war, and then reading my favorite author's book about it, and comparing. It's fun, but I have to finish that. And I was going to move on to another, like I said, a whole list. But then, dang it, Angus Donald does this. Now, Angus Donald is a very successful writer, and I love his version of Robin Hood. I think I read the first two books of his Robin Hood series, especially the first one. It's one of my absolute favorite versions of Robin Hood ever. I highly recommend it. And I've read another one of his books. I read a book that takes place. It's is it the is it the it's I don't know if it's the English Civil War. It's like 1600s, or if it's like the before that, like the conquest of Ireland. I can't remember, but it was like book 3 of a series, but he put it out for 99¢. And I thought it'd be interesting because I always tell people you can read my books out of order if you want, if you like. So I read that, and that was really good. All I'm trying to say is that Angus Donald is a good writer, and I personally am a fan of his. Like I read his books for pleasure. Even before I started writing, I liked his writing, and consider him one of my favorite authors. And on top of that, he is also a super nice guy. And as successful as he is, he has been very kind to me. He interacts with me. He knows I'm an author. He has shared some of my tweets promoting my book. So this, very well-known, successful British author has shared some of my my tweets, advertising my book. So that just, wow, that's great. So anyway, the reason why I want to read this is because of how he's putting this book out. So Donald is commercially published through, I don't know who his publisher is, but big publisher, and I know he's got some projects that he's shopping around to publishers, but he is publishing this work independently, which I think is really interesting. But what's even more interesting is how he's doing it. Now, if you're a fan of Alexander Dumas, the guy who wrote The Musketeers and wrote The Count of Monte Cristo, a lot of people in the 19th century didn't actually, like, Dumas didn't actually write novels. He wrote serials that appeared in the newspaper before there was television. This would be like television shows. So like The Musketeers, which came out in, I believe, 1846, didn't come out as a novel. It came out as a weekly serial. And it sold papers because people got into the story, and so they would buy the newspaper once a week so they could read the latest episode of it. And much like how Netflix works, except it's written. And then basically what they would do is then when they had enough episodes, or I guess episodes of this serial narrative, then they would package it up and put it out as a novel. So, and I think if you read the whole Musketeer story, the whole arc, I think they publish it as like 3 1,200 page novels. Sometimes I've seen it broken into 5, and it covers 50 years of history. It's historical. It's a historical novel, historical fiction. The characters are fictional, but the history in which they're interwoven in is true. And a lot of the characters, are historical characters, are on those books. It's great. I love it. He's who I want to be. So Donald is kind of bringing that back. So what he's started is this thing called the Wormkind Chronicles. It's a King Arthur story. And my understanding is that it's, just doing King Arthur period is fantasy, because we don't, even though there's some kind of historical evidence that there might have been some kind of mystic character around 400, 500 AD, like with the withdrawal of the Romans from Britain and the invasion of the Anglo-Saxons. But historians or archaeologists haven't found like a smoking gun, like, yes, there was an Arthur and this is the real story. Most of it's legend, but it may be based off a real person. And there's all sorts of theories about who he could have been. But so what Donald is doing is he's writing like 70-page. I wish I knew what that meant in word count, but 70-page episodes, and he's selling them in the U.S. for $1.24 an episode, and I bet it's 99 pence in Britain, and $1.24 because a pound's worth more than $1. So that's very reasonable, and you're getting it in chunks. So, and I think the second one's coming out. I was kind of hoping to get this earlier because I would like to have the anticipation of can't wait for the next episode to come out. Now, I will say this: it's YA. It's 12 to 18 years reading age, but Harry Potter is that way, and so is a lot of other a lot of YA work turns out to be very popular movies, even for adults. So and I'll read this. So okay, Author's Bane is the first episode in The Broken Kingdom, the first novel in the Wormkind Chronicles, which is an epic fantasy series about the legendary British hero Arthur. The story ranges across a version of post-Roman Britain in which the various British kingdoms are almost constantly at war and with each other. So there's some real historical aspects to that. Meanwhile, desperate Saxon refugees are flooding into Britain from across the seas, driven from their homes by rising sea levels, and worse, the mighty dragon Scythrol. I'm not good with old British words. The epitome of evil has been awoken from his long slumbers and threatens to extinguish all human life. Okay, so not so much I would call this historical fantasy, maybe, or maybe just epic, but because it's got some historical. It takes place in Britain. It takes place in what do you say? The post-Roman Britain. So and Donald does good research. The Wormkind Chronicles will be delivered in episode. This is why I want to read it. The Wormkind Chronicles will be delivered in episodic form, with a new episode dropping every few months. The first novel, Broken Kingdom, will contain 4 or 5 episodes, each about 20,000. There we go, 20,000 words. 20,000 words. That's what he said. And actually, I did the math. 20,000 words or 70 pages. That works out the same for me too. I found that my pages usually contain about 275 words, more or less. I did the averaging there, and I did the math, and I think 70 pages of my books is about 20,000 words. So I think that's really, really interesting, and it's what I think is cool is that it's actually not new. It's a very old. It's a very 19th century way of releasing things. I like his work. I'm not really a big fan of reading fantasy. I'd rather read historical over fantasy. But I to tell you the truth, I mostly want to read it because I just want to see how this works in doing the episodes. Is this something that I would do? Well, I thought about it, and I had actually, because Amazon has this other program which he's not doing called Velo, which is the same thing, but you have like non-fungible tokens, and you use those tokens to buy episodes, and people can write an episode. I don't know if it's really working. And I'm sure Donald did his research and probably thought about it and figured it's better to do it this way. But I realized, Donald didn't take one of his existing series and then release the next book like that. I think to do this, you have to start fresh with a brand new series. And right now, I'm going to be writing The Long Century, the Carliod, I like to call it. There's going to be 11 books, and I'm about to put out book 5. So I got 6 more books to write in this series, unless something comes along. The publisher comes and gives me $1 million to write something else, and then I'll write that. So I want to see how this works. I'd love to be able to talk to him and just ask him questions about his reasoning and how it works out, and his analysis of did it work out? Was it a good idea? Was it not? So I think I'm going to read that next. I'm kind of excited about it. Like I said, I'm not really. It's more of YA, young adult, and it's fantasy. But by the way, young adult fantasy is huge, huge. It's one of the biggest genres out there, and one of the biggest money makers. And so I'm sure that's why he does it. And this is what's really great is that so instead of writing an entire novel and waiting for it to get done before you can make any money off it, he can make money as he's going by releasing episodes along the way. So so he'll make that money first, and then he'll repackage it and put it out a novel and have a whole new round of readers. So I think it's ingenious. Like I said, I don't know if it's something I can do anytime soon because I'm on my path. I have kind of a side project that I'm not going to talk about openly because I'm writing under a pen name, and I'm just it's something that's kind of interesting to me, but it's not something that I'm going to admit is me. So, and I'm sorry, I'm just, if you find it out there, great, but it wasn't me. It's not me. It's someone else, man. But yeah, I'm writing under a pen name, and what I'm writing might actually work in an episodic way, like a Velo. We'll see. I don't even know if I'm going to publish it, but it's just like a little. Part of it is exploring another genre, but it's also keeping my writing muscles going so that while I'm editing, I'm still doing like writing sprints Monday through Friday, because I find that writing, like playing the violin or working out, if you go to the gym and you're going to the gym, and after a couple months of regular going to the gym, you start putting on muscle mass, you start looking good. And then you take a few days off, and those few days turn into a few weeks, and it turns into a few months, and now you're fat and miserable again. Well, writing's the same way, and so is the violin. You got to practice violin every day. You got to practice it every. Jascha Heifetz said, "If I miss one day of practice, I can tell the difference. If I miss 2 days of practice, the critics can tell the difference. If I miss 3 days of practice, the fans can." And writing's the same way. You need to keep those muscles working. So my little side project may be something I just throw away or just keep for myself, but I might put it out there under another name, and I'm going to stop talking about that before I get myself in any more trouble. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and here's some questions. If you made it this far, first of all, I should have said this in the beginning. Please give me a like, please subscribe, and please leave me a comment. A couple things. One is, do you have one of these voiceover functions on whatever you write on? If you write on Word or was it Scribe? Or, I don't know. Well, there's some specific to writing novel software out there as well. And also, what do you think about the episodic thing? Is that something you'd be interested in reading? Is it something you'd be interested in writing that way? I'd like to know. And I'll be doing another video probably next. I really would rather do a different time, but it just seems like Sunday evening around this time is what works best for me right now. But I would like to do a time. I'd like to get other people on at some point, and I'd like to interview other authors. But I'm trying to build up an audience first for that. So I'll probably be back next Sunday as well with another episode. I don't know what we're going to talk about yet, but I'll have updates about the Prussian Prince. And in the meantime, if you got a favorite author out there, make sure you give that author lots of stars and reviews on Amazon and Goodreads. We absolutely live and die by that. And keep reading. And I hope if you haven't read my stuff yet, I hope you jump on board. You don't have to start with book one necessarily. You can read any of them out of order, although it does tell a continuous story all the way through. But every book I write as if you've never read anything of mine before. And I hope I get some pre-sales, pre-orders, 99 cents. If you want to read that next book, The Prussian Prince, 99 cents. That will come out the day after Christmas. We'll probably do a little live launch of that. And of course, on my birthday, the book comes out. So we'll see. Perils of Perryville came out my book on my birthday, but that kind of flopped because it came out right when two things. I tried to time it so that it would come out on my birthday, but it's back then it was unreliable. Like when you sent in the manuscripts, you had to wait for Amazon to approve it, and then it'd go live. And so you try to time it so that it'll happen on a certain date. And so I think it ended up not going on my birthday, but on a different date near my birthday. But now they have a new thing where I can have it actually come out on a specific date, but you have to get them the manuscript a week in advance. So, and it's the same with the pre-order too. So for the digital, because the digital and the print versions are separate manuscripts. So everything has to be done, finalized, and submitted a week before, and then you can't touch it. You're locked out. You guys just wait till it comes out before you can make any changes and all that. So anyway, look for that. I won't keep you any longer. Thank you very much for tuning in. I love you guys, and stay safe out there. We had some tornadoes. Damn near drove through one last night. That was pretty crazy, but